think it was a souvenir from a place he'd been. The silver spoon. She was done with him and his teenage brat. She had left one shitty situation and landed herself another with a teenager to boot. She never wanted kids, and here she was raising one that wasn't her own. Tonight she'd tell him she was through. "I'm cooked. I'm done. Sayonara, bitches." She grabbed the washing from the machine and dumped it beneath the clothesline. She ripped tangled socks away from each other and gave them a peg each on the line. She smashed the clothesline round so that it spun. The socks would be with other socks, the T-shirts would be grouped, and the pants would have their own section. That was how she was going to hang them, and if he came out here telling her what to do, well, guess what? She wouldn't wait for dinner to tell him where to go. Once the clothes were up, she went inside and drew the blinds. She stared and stared at the wall and thought of all the wrongs he and his boy had ever done. She dredged up every sorry fact and aired it out. She could feel herself stooping lower, her fists clenching, waiting for something to hit. Only yesterday he told her to take up kickboxing. Maybe I will, she thought grimly. Maybe I just will. Eventually she stood up and went to make dinner. They were due home soon, him the hard worker, and then there was his delinquent son. He talked about the boy going to university, but the kid was destined for jail and no place else. She made dinner, she set the table, she waited, she watched the door. They arrived at 6 on the dot, him in his suit and tie, the boy in shorts and a shirt. They chatted loudly, opening doors and banging them shut, rummaging around in the cutlery drawer, and then they sat down together to their meal. He said it was delicious. The boy rolled the peas around on his plate. She asked about everyone's day. The boy removed a silver spoon from his pocket. "You wouldn't believe what I was given today." And he launched into a long-winded story about a neighbour giving him an heirloom as a gift. She knew he'd pinched it from somewhere, but his father nodded, a sucker if ever there was one. She turned to him next. "Darling, how was your day?" "You wouldn't believe it, I got a promotion." And he launched into his long-winded story, this quality must be genetic, about the events leading up to his news. Finally they turned to her. "And what about your day?" She stabbed at a pea. "I cooked, I cleaned, I hung your filthy clothes on the line." They stared at her. It was dead silent after that. The promotion. The day Dave got the promotion started out like any other day. He dressed in the morning, tie, suit, belt. He had his breakfast of cereal and tea, and he was on his way at 8:45. Straight down Brisbane Street, a left at Peel, 1 block, and he was at work. The drive only took 5 minutes, and he ducked into Sonny's for a coffee and to order a wrap for lunch. That day it was chicken and lettuce. Safe, tried and enjoyed 100 times. He carried his coffee to the office and drank it slowly as he read his emails. There were interruptions as the day wore on. Hello, Jill. Hello, Gavin. Hello, Clarice. And round midday they stood around the kitchen for a chat. Families, the drought, the state of the town. They shared the latest gossip about the mayor and then returned to their desks. When he looked up, which was often, his eyes would rest on one of two things, the mountains in the distance or the painting of Moonby done by a local artist. She'd scribbled her signature in the corner and he could make out the word town. His eyes often fell on this painting, and sometimes he really saw it, but most of the time it was a place to park his eyes while he thought over the urgent matters of the day. Certain topics came up weekly: the water supply, vandalism, greening local areas, upcoming events in town. And he would look up at the painting, his eyes resting somewhere beyond it. It was 5 minutes before he was due to break for lunch. He was thinking about Sam, who'd been called up to the deputies because he'd been caught smoking. "Sorry, Dad," came quick after the first message, and he resolved not to tell her about Sam's latest episode. The boy was a handful without her yapping in his ear. No, this was one he'd keep to himself. He was